Hello again, everyone. This is Bob Martin, the RCSubGuy with the NautilusDryDocks.com with another completed build to share with you. It's a little bit of a unique boat, a German modern submarine, the Type 214. Kind of excited to share it with you, so let's get started. So what I have behind me here, as I mentioned, is a modern German boat, the Type 214 in 1/48 scale. It puts it about 55 inches in overall length, which is actually a really nice size because you can put a nice beefy cylinder inside and you've got tons of room inside to work without having to utilize tweezers in order to install anything. This particular hull was manufactured by a gentleman by the name of Giannis out of Greece, and I believe the kit is no longer in production. So let's take a closer look at it. So a little bit of background on this particular boat. It was purchased by a gentleman out of Australia, and it was shipped to a builder out of California, and he put the kit together, shipped it to the customer in Australia. Gentleman in Australia took a look at it and unfortunately was not happy with the quality of the build, and so he sent it back to me to get upgraded and made water worthy. Throughout the course of our conversations, gentleman actually ended up trading this boat to me, so it became mine, and trading some work for a different build, which will be an upcoming OTW Oberon submarine build. So that'll be super exciting. But at any rate, what ended up happening, this boat found a new owner with a gentleman by the name of John out of the UK. We just ran the boat yesterday in the pond. Amazingly clear water, the clearest I've ever seen it down here in Southwest Florida, and it performed absolutely flawlessly, not a drop of water in the cylinder, and as you will see in a few moments, it performed flawlessly. One-handed operation to maintain periscope depth. Basically, this boat drove itself. So hey, enough talking for now. Let's get to some video of the boat running around in my local pond on its very first maiden voyage. So as you can see, it was an absolute joy to drive this particular boat. Handled extremely well, very docile on the controls, easy to manage. I would say any beginner would have an easy time taking this boat out for the very first time and look like a competent sub skipper. A lot of that has to do with the OTW dive module, which has very, very precise control of the ballast system, and it made it very easy to trim the boat out because there's such a large amount of buoyancy associated with the cylinder itself. I'll show you the inside of the boat here momentarily, but a few notes about what you saw there. as you can see, the turning radius was actually quite good, particularly when the boat was in submerged trim. Also, speed was quite adequate, and you'll see the drivetrain is very, very smooth and efficient. So, like I said, it was an absolute joy to drive. No problem maintaining periscope depth within an inch with basically hands-off control of the model. So I want to show you how this was accomplished, all of the various components that go into the boat, and how they're installed getting ready for the pond. So it's a bit of an operations manual for the new owner. If you're here strictly for entertainment purposes and get bored with talking and technical jargon, you can leave now. This is primarily for education, not entertainment, although a lot of people do find it entertaining. So without any further delay, let's take a look at how this submarine works. So let's take a look at the major parts of this particular boat. Obviously in the background you can see the hull itself, 55 inches in overall length. It's fiberglass construction with resin appendages, LED lights, as you'll see here in a little bit. We got our main drive motor, and this is a sealed lead acid battery, 5 amp capacity, and this runs in the wet area of the boat, and I'll show that to you in a bit. The only thing that needs to be waterproofed with these sealed lead acid batteries is the positive terminal, so that's got some RTV on it, and a waterproof connection here that connects to the cylinder, just like that. We've got an OTW 3.5 inch diameter watertight cylinder. Beautiful units. I would actually say I prefer these over the larger 4.3 inch diameter units. This is the forward linkage for the forward dive planes, and it connects magnetically, so there's nothing to make up when you drop that upper hull on. It simply snaps into position, and when you pull the upper hull away, it simply removes itself. We've got a remote on-off switch module, our main ballast pump, ballast solenoid, our forward dive plane servo, and a speed controller that drives the pumps. Now typically you would see this with an OTW dive controller, but that unit actually was faulty when I got this, and so it was replaced with a high output electronic speed controller from Mtronics. This is our central ballast tank, and I would say realistically when the boat is in full submerged trim, it's probably only halfway full. So it dives and surfaces in a very reasonable amount of time. We've got our receiver, our rudder and rear dive plane servos, an electronic pitch controller, our main drive motor, and hiding underneath there is the electronic speed controller for the main drive motor. Got a nice big beefy seal here, and this is, by the way, fully adjustable in terms of compressibility. You simply screw this knob down, this knurled nut, and that puts additional compression on the seal, so you can actually control to what degree that seal seals against that main drive shaft. And then, just like in the front, we've got magnetic connectors for the two rear control surfaces. And this boat is controlled with a RadioLink AT9S Pro 2.4 gigahertz radio system. So it operates basically all day at or above periscope depth. And it's exceptionally easy to drive. In case of loss of signal, which I will demonstrate a little bit later, the boat will automatically drive itself back up to the surface to re-establish signal. Very slick and in practical application, it works very, very well. And that antenna, by the way, runs up this mast right out the top. So it's the highest point of the boat. All right, let's get into the nitty-gritty here. Access via this stainless bolt, and it's basically a thumb screw. You don't need any tools, although it does have a socket head in there if it gets stubborn for some reason. So that comes out, bow lifts up, and it simply comes forward. Now I'm going to show you the inside of the upper hull here. This is where the old flotation foam used to be. And here's that magnetic linkage that I was telling you about. That snaps right onto the watertight cylinder, and that's how that connection is made up. We've got lots of vents here for trapped air. This is the lead for the LED lights, which are obviously embedded in the sail. And we've got the hole in the mast that you feed your 2.4 gigahertz antenna up through. So nice and simple, very light, which means that you don't need much ballast to get down to the proper water line. Up in the front, we've got a tray for the main drive battery. And I'm going to attempt to put this in one-handed without dropping it or anything. There you go. Just slips right in place. Nice and secure. We've got some lead ballast in the keel and lots of flotation foam on the side. For those of you interested in how you trim an RC submarine, I've got a lot of other videos about that, but basically, to begin with, all of your flotation foam is at or below the designed water line, which is right at that level. Looking in the back, we've got all of our various control linkages here, again with the opposite side of the magnets, and then we've got our drive shaft right here, and this moves very, very smoothly, nice and easily. We'll show you how smooth and quiet that is after we get this cylinder in. So to put the cylinder in, and again, I'm going to try and do this one-handed, so I'll be impressed if I can make this work. I'm going to spin the prop and align that dog bone. Just going to grab that, lift it up, slide it back. So that's engaged. And if we kind of lift this up and push that down, the whole thing drops in place. Now, what I did not do is pull out the Velcro tabs that come over top, but those basically just go over the top and secure down, and that stops the cylinder from lifting up out of the little cradles that it slips into right there. We've got a few outputs on the watertight cylinder. This one here is for the LED lights, and this one here is for the main drive battery. So that I cannot do one-handed. I'm going to hook that up momentarily. You'll see that this magnetic linkage snapped right in place without me having to do anything, and this one just locks in place exactly like that. So I'm going to pause it here for 1 second, attach the power leads, and then we'll show you it in action. All right, the cylinder is now attached. I've just simply tucked the wires down underneath. We got the LED wiring lead connected to the upper deck, and our antenna is all ready to slip into the upper deck as well. Turn on our radio. Oh, you know what? I'm going to turn that down. You want to make sure that this is centered. The throttle is centered before you turn it on. There we go. And now we've got these fancy key fobs in the back, and when we turn that on, we get a nice audio cue that the speed controllers have signal. We've got visual indication of power to the receiver. We've got visual indications that the power is on through these beautiful bright LEDs in the tower and trailing edge of the sail. And basically everything is ready to test. So let's test a couple of the functions. We've got our bow plane servo here. In the back, we've got our rudder with nice degree of deflection there. And on the back of the radio, we've got a channel. And basically this slider here controls the rear dive plane. So as I move that, it's an override for the automatic pitch controller. You can also dial the boat in to run nice and level. We'll just show you that pitch controller working. So that's automatically trying to correct for the pitch of the boat to keep it on a level keel. Let's try that throttle out that I had mentioned before. I'm just going to ease it in. You can't even hear it working. It is so utterly smooth. And that brass prop is gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. And we'll get it up into full throttle here. That fluctuation in the pitch controller is completely normal. It just has to do with the vibration that goes through that gyroscope on the automatic pitch controller is very, very sensitive. In the water, that becomes absolutely negligible and completely goes away. Last thing to check is the ballast system, so we can turn that on. And the other way. You do not want to run this pump very long, just a couple of seconds without any water in it, because it does use the water to lubricate the pump. So all of the functions are working. I'll just review the radio here. On the right stick, we've got our forward dive planes, our rudder, throttle. This is a spare channel. It's not connected to anything. Ballast control, submerge, surface, and then the last one on the back, as I mentioned, this slider controls the override for the rear dive planes. Lots of extra channels. It's an 8-channel radio. We're really only using 5 channels. The other thing I've got here that I didn't mention before, this is a charging adapter for the sealed lead acid battery. So this can connect to a standard Dean's connection and allows you to charge up the battery through the waterproof connector. So that is all done and ready to go. Let's get the top of the hull on. All right, I'm going to put the top hull on, and the most important thing here is threading the 2.4 gigahertz antenna through the mast. So I'm just going to grab our upper hull here, grab our antenna, insert it into the base of the mast, push it up until it comes out, and then just basically tuck in our wires, make sure they're not going to get trapped. Rear tab goes in, hull goes down, making sure there's no trapped wires here. And again, no tools required. Tighten down the front of the hull. So upper hull is on, power is on, everything is functional. We can test our forward dive planes, and those are working well with great deflection. Basically, we are now ready for the pond. The boat is ready for her voyage, and the great thing is now we don't need to open the hull up again at all until after the operation. To turn it off, we just simply push the off button, and we're ready to go. So just a couple of notes on a post-mission maintenance perspective. Once you're done, obviously you're going to power off the model, bring it ashore. If you've got a source of fresh water, immediately rinse the hull, both inside and out. Just make sure there's no sand, grit, or algae that dries on the hull, or water, which can also create water spotting and ruin the finish of your boat. So rinse it down, make sure that it's nice and clean. You might want to also bring a soft towel or a paper towel to dry it once it's been rinsed clean. Pull out the cylinder at the pond. Make sure that there's no water in the cylinder. If there is, open it up immediately, let it dry out. You do not want to keep water in that cylinder until you get home. Inspect the seals periodically to make sure that they're not leaking. Lubricate anything that needs to be lubricated, such as your control surfaces and your main drive shaft. And charge up your battery. Make sure that you keep it in the proper state of charge and ready to go for the next time you head out to the pond. Well, that is it. That is this German Type 214 remote-controlled submarine from the German Navy. final assembly testing and maiden voyage carried out by yours truly, Bob Martin, the RCSubGuy. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions or comments, I would love to hear from you. Prefer email, bob@rc-sub.com at any time. Promise I'll get back to you as soon as I can. If you'd like to leave a comment, by all means do it, but I don't check it very often. I've got something in the vicinity of 200 videos right now, and staying on top of all the comments is a little bit problematic from a labor perspective. So reach out to me directly and we will hook you up with any information or products that you need. As always, I very much appreciate you checking out my channel. Please subscribe. Check out my website, nautilusdrydocks.com, for lots of kits, components, parts, resources, and other information about this amazing hobby of remote-controlled submarines. Thanks, everyone. We will catch you next time.